So hi guys, Jonathan Graham here for Guitar Interactive Magazine, and we are on the Keeping the Blues Alive Mediterranean Tour, and we are with Kenny Wayne Shepherd. How are you doing today, buddy?
Good.
Man, it's an absolute pleasure to see you in this environment. It's always a pleasure to see you. But what a great vibe and what a great show from you last night. How was it from your perspective?
I thought it was good. You know, it's on these things sometimes. It can be a little dicey playing the very first night. You know, it's nice to kind of like get acclimated and get situated, and you know the jet lag and all that stuff. But on the flip side of that, it's nice to like get on the boat and get a show under your belt too.
Yeah.
So I think there's two schools of thought there, but for us, I think it went really well. I mean, I hit the jet lag was hitting me about 30 minutes before I went on, and I was up in the room and I had sat down, which was not a good idea. And so I was feeling like I was going to pass out. But then the next thing you know, the tour manager showed up. She said, "We need to go downstairs." So I was on stage within 30 minutes, and the adrenaline took over, and I think we had a good show.
Yeah, man. Well, as I said just before we started rolling, you would never know for a second that it wasn't anything but positive vibes, because that's all it was, and it was what was coming back. But not only, from the fans on board, but from a lot of the artists as well that were watching you, and it really feels like a real brotherhood, the blues on this, because so many of these guys you've worked with now for couple of decades. I mean, obviously you've known Joe for a while, but the Josh Smith as well, that you go way back with. I mean, how do you feel like that sharing these types of festivals with these guys, like it really does feel like there's a great brotherhood in the music?
Well, I think so. I think it's a great opportunity. These kinds of things on these boats, it's like you have a captive audience, and you have people that aren't going anywhere, and there's a lot of bands, and so that enables you to catch a lot of music and see a lot of bands. And for the artists, it does the same thing, because we're all still here as well.
Yeah.
You can't play your show and then jump on the tour bus and head to the next gig.
Yeah.
So it gives us an opportunity to sit and watch each other and appreciate each other. And like you said, a lot of us have kind of been down this path together for decades, and so I think the camaraderie is certainly pretty evident. And I think most people, at least from our generation, me and Joe and Josh and all the people that are around our age, I think we've all been doing this long enough now that everybody's just happy to see everyone be successful and doing what they love to do.
Absolutely, and part of that success, of course, is putting out fantastic records, and you're back with another great record in November, Dirt on My Diamonds, Volume 1. Just talk us through putting this one together, because this is a very special release, I've got to say.
Yeah. Well, basically, the whole thing started just prior to COVID. So I had been writing and started recording some things, and then it got put on the back burner. Obviously, everything came to a halt for a couple of years there. So after we were able to get back up and running, and the business started back up again, we were able to finish the record, and I'm just really excited about it, because we're always excited to put new music out, but I mean, to me, this album picks up where the last album left off with The Traveler, but I think it takes things a step further, and there's a lot of different sounds. I mean, my goal is to always, we put out a record, I don't want people to feel like they know what it sounds like before they've heard it.
Yeah.
I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to constantly just do the same thing. So this album does different things than The Traveler did, but there is a common kind of sound and a theme to the albums. Ever since I've been working with Marshall Altman, and we've been co-producing, starting with Lay It On Down, it almost feels like the albums we've been putting out are different chapters in a book. And so with Dirt on My Diamonds, Volume 1, there is a Volume 2 as well, and it's almost like, yes, these are most definitely two chapters in one big book and of music. And it's exciting, though, because there's so many different sounds. We're taking things in a few different directions. Obviously, the blues is always present in what we do, but you got, there's rock, there's a little bit of like a hip-hop influence to some of the grooves and things like that. I'm singing about half the songs, and Noah's singing the other half of the songs, so you have these two different voices, which are contributing. And I mean, but to me, it sounds incredibly, for this kind of music, it sounds very fresh and very young, and very, I don't know if current is the right word, but it's like, I think we're kind of pushing some boundaries in a positive way.
I think you absolutely are, by the way. Congratulations on it. And I think the most important thing to really say on it is it really sounds like you really give a fuck about the music. Do you know what I mean? And there's so much stuff that's coming out these days that it's forgettable, especially when you've got an audience that have an expectation, and you could just meet that. You know, you could just keep doing that
Right.
that same thing, or not put anything out and just tour the great music. But I loved when I heard it, and the fact that I was just like, wow, this guy's still got such a fire. But it's fantastic as also to hear that some of it has been created in that era that's connected to the Traveller, because in a lot of ways for me, I'm thinking now when Volume 2 comes, this is almost going to be one hell of a trilogy, man, because this partnership with Noah is, I mean, it's really taking you in a whole other direction. You know, can you just talk a little bit about working with him, and you know how that sort of inspired you and sort of re-energized.
Well, we've been together now for 26 years, and so you know, he was singing in my band when I was unable to sing. You know, I didn't start singing until my 4th album, so you know, it's really important. I mean, it was my band and the sound, and I write the songs and I produce the records and, you know, make the arrangements, and, you know, it's like, it's all my thing, but I wasn't the lead singer. And so, you know, who that person was to be and the sound of that voice was incredibly important. You know, it can make or break any band, who the lead singer is. And he's always had such an incredible instrument, you know, and he has a lot of qualities to the sound of his voice that I don't have, and vice versa. You know, we have two really different sounding voices that actually blend really well when we do harmonies and things like that. Some of these songs, there's a song called Best of Times on this new record where we actually share, which we've done in the past, we share lead vocals on the song. So he sings the verses, I sing the choruses, and it's this, you know, these two completely different sounds that come together in this song that really creates a really interesting dynamic. And so I think throughout the record and in the band, the fact that once I started singing lead vocals, that we have these two different voices, it broadens our musical capability, you know, because with one voice and one guy singing, you know, there's some songs like that just might not be appropriate for, you know, not every song is appropriate for one guy's voice or one girl's voice. And so that's why you have to, when you go and make a record, you try different things and you pick the ones that work. But when you have two people that are capable, then that broadens, you know, the amount of stuff that you can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, it's one thing, you know, having a great vocal voice, but you've got such a great voice on the instrument, of course, which is, you know, everyone knows that. But it's the ultimate, you know, it's a $1 million question, though, you know, finding that voice on the instrument for people are watching, even for myself, when you're playing, you're trying to find that voice and be able to, you know, communicate through the instrument. What do you think are the key factors in finding that, especially early on when you're playing?
For me, that's all I had for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't singing, because when I opened up my voice and I tried to sing when I was young, I sounded like a kid. And I didn't want that for my music. And I think, you know, some people think maybe there's two trains of thought. It's like, well, you're the namesake of the band. You should be the lead singer in the band and the guitar player. But at that time, I think if I would have allowed myself to be talked into that, I don't know that I would have had the success that I had, because my voice wasn't appropriate for the music I was writing and recording. So I think it was the right move, and I stepped up when the time was appropriate. But until that point that I actually started singing, the only way I had to express myself, my musical voice, was through the instrument, through the guitar. And, you know, you want to create your own identity, you know, and so that's a sum of your influences. You take all your influences and what you've learned from them, and then you try and figure out, well, how do I want to portray these sounds and these emotions through this instrument to create my own sound, you know?
Yeah. So a lot of ways out of necessity that something great happened, you know?
Absolutely, yeah, without a doubt.
Do you remember anything sort of early on that, you know, was a challenge for you on the instrument, something that you were just knocking, you know, away at just to get down?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's still things that are a challenge. Like, if I step out of what's comfortable for me, I'm challenged, you know? If I want to play, if I want to try and play like some of these Nashville guys, you know, it's like I haven't spent a lot. It's not that I can't do it. I just haven't spent the time to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
I know I have the skill set. I know I have the tools to be able to do it. But, you know, when you're first trying that stuff, it's challenging. Early on, though, I always felt like I wasn't like the fastest player, you know. When you're young and you're learning guitar, like young guys and girls maybe, but I can speak from being a guy, guitar player, it's like they put this importance on being able to play fast, you know. And it's like I just didn't feel that I was like one of the fastest players, but I actually learned to really embrace that as I got older. And I can play fast, but I never tried to hone in on that to the point that I would be known for being a fast player. I wanted to be known for being an emotional player, you know, so that like people feel what I'm playing instead of like, you know, being wowed by the dexterity or like my huge vocabulary of guitar licks. I wanted them to be struck by the emotion that they feel when I play. Mm-hmm. And so I started focusing on that more than anything as I got older, and it's like that's really my goal when I pick it up, is to make people feel it. And when I would listen to my heroes, you know, the old school blues guys, or even if it was like more modern people like Stevie or Jimi Hendrix, but B.B. King and Albert Collins and all these old guys, and I would listen to a song and I would find a moment in the song where I felt moved in my soul, and I would stop the music and I go, what just happened? What just happened that made me feel that? And it was never somebody playing this incredibly complicated thing. It was always they played the right note at the right time and put this power behind it, you know? And I'm like, well, that moves me and it makes me feel something inside, and that's what I want to do to people. So that's the route that I'm going.
So even with the Dirt on My Diamonds, you know, when you're writing this record, does that initial feeling that you had even the first time you were hearing, you know, music and it was moving you, is that still something that you use to sort of guide whether you're going in the right direction with a new song?
Well, I feel like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we write songs and we pursue them, and, you know, sometimes we'll write a song and we'll try recording it, it doesn't work out, it doesn't make the cut, and then the ones that do. But what happens is in the moment I'm so focused on making the record and the process and all of that stuff, you know, I'm just kind of like allowing the music to guide the process. But it's after it's all said and done and we've signed off on everything and I'm listening back to the mixes, and that's when I'm able to sit back and actually feel the emotional impact of the record. And for me, it's like, I just find myself really grateful. I mean, every time I have finally finished a new record, I listen back to it, I have these moments of gratitude, because I'm just so grateful to be able to make music for a living. And it's like, and the idea is like, even if nobody ever heard that stuff, like I know people are gonna hear it, but even if nobody ever heard it and it was just me that was the only person listening to that, I would still feel that gratitude, because it's just so wonderful to be able to make music. It's such a special thing, and I don't take it for granted.
Yeah, no, I think it's super obvious in the way that you produce the music and with the performances, for sure. Now, we've seen you play some real classic instruments over the years. You know, sometimes you put up some social media posts with some bits and pieces that you've got. Are you still out there, you know, picking up new bits and pieces? I'm assuming that you're always approached for people to send you stuff to play. What are some things that have come your way over the last couple of years?
Well, the biggest thing that has come my way recently is a 1960 Les Paul. And I was on the hunt for one for many, many years, but I'm very methodical. I know that, like, you know, patience is a virtue, and that, you know, the right thing will come at the right time. So I started searching for one. I don't even know how many years ago, and it took however many years before the right one came my way.
The price keeps going up and up.
I know. Yeah, it would have been great if I'd have found it, you know, years ago. But anyways, it was a right guitar at the right time. And it's a beautiful instrument. It has everything that I could ever want in one of those guitars. I prefer the 60 because it has a little thinner neck, and to me it feels like it plays easier and faster.
But it must be one of the last ones then of that run.
Yeah, it's actually I think it was mid-cycle, because I think halfway through the year of 1960, they had this run of guitars that actually have just about all the 59 features, but the thinner neck. So like the burst faded. It doesn't have that other red paint that doesn't fade. And the knobs are different, you know, they're the 59 style knobs instead of like the ones with the little silver top. So it has all the looks, and it has a great personality. It plays wonderful. It's all original, and it sounds incredible. So it's like everything I could ever want. I checked the box. I got the guitar I've been wanting for forever, and, you know, one's good enough for me, you know. And so then it's on to the next thing. But for me, it's really hard. Like I really battle between, you know, because I'm a big car guy. Right, I love cars, I love automobiles, and sometimes it's a toss-up for me between the cars and the guitars. So it's like, I don't know which one I'm looking for more. is like the next car or the next guitar, because they both are real passionate.
Of course. Just to talk a little bit more on that burst though, because you know it's such a special instrument. Is it got so it got a little bit of a backstory, this one?
I don't. No, it doesn't actually. Or I didn't ask the backstory, but it's totally legitimate guitar. It was held by a collector. It wasn't officially on the market for sale, so it was one of those transactions that happened like behind the scenes and stuff. But it's totally legit, verified. It's got an amazing top on it. I mean, like I said, it's all original, even down to the frets. It's never been refretted or anything.
And are we hearing that on the new record at all?
Yeah, it's on the record. Yeah,
brilliant.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, you always just expect fantastic tones from you anyway. Do you know what I mean? And there's killer tones throughout the record.
Oh, you know what? I misspoke. So on this record, it's not on this record, but it's on this other record that we did last October. But that album probably won't come out for like 3 or 4 years from now.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, because we're that far ahead of ourselves. we're recording so much music, which is really great, that I'm like, you know, I'm ahead of schedule now, which I used to always be trying to catch up. We'd finish a tour and they'd be like, you got to write a record and put a new record out. And I'd hurry up and do another record, and now I've been trying to take opportunities to write and record in any kind of spare time that I find, so that I don't ever feel pressed to do it.
Of course. How do you visualize the fretboard these days? You know, has it got to the point now where it's just you hear what you want to play, and it just, you know, you go to the notes and find it, you know, or do you find you sometimes revert back to fret visualization on the fretboard?
Well, there's patterns and muscle memory to it, you know, and so, you know, when your hand's in a certain spot, it kind of knows where it needs to go. And yes, I mean, I would say compared to some other players, you know, I have, you know, I don't have as large of a vocabulary of guitar licks or things like that as some people do. But the ones that I do, I feel like I do pretty well. And I try not to get into a rut where I'm repeating myself too much. So it's like, how do I take the things that I do really well and continue to push those things in ever more so slightly different directions, so that it doesn't start to sound too repetitive. And that's kind of where I go. And, you know, it's like, I watch other players and I still try and learn things. When I hear somebody, I'll hear, you know, any one of these guys that's here, it's like, whoa, that's a great lick. I want to learn how to play that lick. And I'll still sit down and learn things from other people. But, you know, so much is happening between my personal life and my family and stuff, and the professional life and stuff, that I don't find that I have the time. Like when I was a kid, I would go to school and I would come home and I would play guitar for hours and hours and hours, 6 hours straight, whatever it is, just nonstop, you know, when I was really learning the instrument. And now I do, you know, the majority of my practice is what's happening on stage or in sound check or in the occasional rehearsal when we do them. Because when I'm at home, I'm not sitting around playing guitar for hours like I used to when I was a kid, because I have 6 kids to take care of with my wife, and I very much love being involved in their lives, you know. So I can't just sit around and play guitar all day. So it's really just finding, like, how do I continue with the things that I know how to do? How can I build on that, but how can I learn to continue to push those in slightly different directions so that it's not always sounding the same?
Absolutely. Now, you did mention this, you know, some great players all throughout the show here on the cruise. Anybody in particular you think you might get a chance to go and check out? Maybe someone you haven't seen live?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I haven't even seen the schedule yet, so I'm gonna have to check the schedule. But there's a lot of amazing musicians.
And a lot of people wanting to see Chris Buck, of course, playing with Cardinal Black. I don't know whether you're aware of Chris's playing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's great, man. Yeah.
And you know, he's a friend of the magazine, of course, and he was there with us watching you last night as well. So, you know, we would love to know that you were checking out him. But when do you think we'll see you in the UK again?
Well, certainly next year at some point. I think they're probably working on trying to figure those dates out now. Yeah. And we're trying to push things, you know, further and further in advance to try and get the things on the schedule. So first of all, so we know what we're doing, and so the fans know when we're coming, and we give them enough time to find out, you know, so they can be there. But with the new record, obviously, there's going to be a new tour that's going to bring us back over there. So.
Of course. And what about with Signature? You anything you in the works? Anything you're working with?
I haven't done a lot. You know, I've had 2 different Signature Strats with Fender over the years. I haven't done any amps. I haven't done pedals and stuff. It's like I'm pretty selective about, you know, what I really want to put my name on. And
it felt like that. It felt like you back to for a while. It was like very much that you could see all the signature stuff, but it feels like it's been a while since we've seen it. And clearly that was a decision that you made.
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, I don't want to just put my name on anything, and I'm not saying that's what people do, but you know, some people will put their name on anything, but I just feel like, I don't know, man, the things that are important to me. The guitar is kind of, as far as it goes, being a player, it's like amplifiers and guitars. It's like that's as good as it gets, right? Pedals are cool too, but you know, it's like in the world of pedals, it's like, I mean, I don't want to sound jaded, but it's like what there's not been anything groundbreaking, right? And so it's just like if I do a signature overdrive pedal, it's just going to be a different color of the, you know, housing of the same pedal that everybody else has had for years and years and years.
It's awesome, you know, the you know, how honest you are about it, because you know that way as well. Even with the Hendrix thing, it's like, you know, you've got the Dunlop signature Hendrix. It's like he didn't even use that; he was using the Vox, you know.
Right,
you know,
but with the guitars, like I've spec'd these guitars out. I designed these guitars, right? Like my hand, my fingerprint, my everything is all over these guitars. So things that I can be heavily involved in. The reason why I haven't done any amplifiers is because I got hooked up with Dumble, you know, probably, I don't know, 14 years ago. And once he started building me amps, it was like, you know, how can you go from that to anything else, you know? And so then I just never really have sought any kind of an amp endorsement, because what I want the amp to be based off of are the amps that Dumble built for me, and there's so many people that have like tried to rip him off in that way over the years. I would never be a part of that. So, you know, that's why I never pursued any signature amplifiers.
So we're maybe more likely to see a signature automobile, you know?
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so.
Coming down. Look, man, thanks so much for taking some time. Congratulations on the new record, and we'll look forward to seeing another show from you on the cruise here.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.